Imagine getting one of the most plum government appointments you could possibly imagine. And imagine that plum appointment pays you $324,000 a year, and you get to travel all over the world, but not at your expense. It's at the taxpayer's expense, the very people footing the bill who are dealing with a daily affordability crisis in this country. Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me is Brian Lilley. I'm referring, of course, Brian, to Canada's very vaunted Governor General, Mary Simon, who just came into office just a couple of short years ago after the catastrophe of the former Liberal appointed Governor General, Julie Payette. But a parliamentary committee is looking into the exorbitant, and I'm being charitable when I say that, about Mary Simon's expenses to the point where she's already spent nearly $3 million on traveling alone since her appointment.
And this is not out of line for MPs to start saying, you know what, you need to start living within your budget. Even the royal family is given a budget allotment, and it's up to the members of parliament in the UK whether to increase or decrease that. And they take political considerations into account while doing that. Mary Simon is becoming well known for out of control spending. $117,000 on dry cleaning. As someone that used to use dry cleaning on a near daily basis a few years ago in the good old days of TV, I wouldn't come close to that or even a fraction of that. And so what are they sending out to be dry cleaned? You've got the exorbitant cost of her trip to Dubai, the German book fair, $71,000 on limousines in Iceland for an event that was a short walk away. We're talking a couple of hundred meters. These are all expenses that end up leaving you scratching your head. You don't have to be someone who doesn't believe the government should spend a penny on anything to realize this is wrong.
I will never forget the headlines when Bev Oda expensed $16 orange juice on a trip. And now we have Canada's current Governor General expensing, as you say, all that money on dry cleaning and the insane amount of money on limousine rides on a recent trip to Iceland. Now, what's happening, of course, is there is an annual budget for the Governor General. It's nearly $25 million, so nothing certainly to sniff at, but it also includes clothing allowances, and which Mary Simon has already spent thousands of taxpayers' dollars on clothing, some of which, of course, we can understand. Her role in a position as Governor General has ceremonial responsibilities. Yep. There are certain cultural outfits and clothing that is required. I get that. But what we're seeing in some instances is just clothing for day-to-day stuff. And I want to repeat, she receives an annual salary of $324,000 to do that. So this parliamentary committee that is telling the Governor General that it's time for Rideau Hall to live within their means and be cognizant of the fact that Canada is in an affordability crisis. What happens with this information? Does Rideau Hall get the message? Where does this go?
Look, what's important to remember is you mentioned a couple of times your $324,000 salary. None of the expenses that you're discussing, the clothing, the dry cleaning bills, the travel, none of that comes out of her $324,000 salary. She gets that. Then there's the $25 million budget for the office of the Governor General. She's got a home in Ottawa, Rideau Hall. It's grand. It's lovely. If you haven't toured it and you're in the nation's capital, I suggest you go there. Beautiful grounds as well. The Prime Minister lives across the greens there on the property. She's got the Citadel at Quebec City as a second home. And yet Mary Simon, I believe, ended up spending a lot of the pandemic living elsewhere with us paying for it during the pandemic. So this is a woman who doesn't pay for much of anything, gets a big salary, and then has all these expenses, exorbitant expenses. So what happens? Well, MPs are putting her on notice. And this is a woman and an office that is very precarious in Quebec, not just because of the separatist angle, not just because there are so many Quebecers who would like to get rid of the monarchy. They will accept the Governor General, absolutely. But Mary Simon doesn't speak French. So expect a lot more of the nitpicking to come in the French media, because they simply think it's unacceptable to have a unilingual, well, she's not unilingual, but she doesn't speak French. I believe she speaks Inuktitut as well as English, but not a lick of French. She is trying to learn, but as anyone can tell you, the older you get, the more difficult it is to learn a new language. And so I expect that Quebec MPs and Quebec media will pick up on all of this and start grinding it. We need to figure out the office of the Governor General. You're right. We had a disaster with Julie Payette. We ended up with Mary Simon as the replacement. That is not working out all that well at this point. I think that we need to start looking for people that know what the role is, which, by the way, doesn't include getting involved in politics like she's done lately, and perhaps brings in a bit of respect for taxpayers.
Well, I don't even think rock stars, when they're traveling around, spend $71,000 on limousines. I mean, I get she's our Governor General. There needs to be security. That these are all important things. I understand that, but it really stings when we are in this issue in this country day after day, when parents, families, Canadians are making very hard decisions about whether or not they're going to buy meat in their grocery run this week, whether they're going to get milk or bread, whether they're going to get butter or vegetables. Like this is a very real, this is a big reality for Canadians day after day after day. Now, I get that Justin Trudeau, he doesn't give a you-know-what about the public funds. We now know that his trip over the Easter break cost over $200,000 as opposed to the $20,000 it was supposed to. You know, he's the guy that spent $6,000 on a night in a hotel room to attend the Queen's funeral. So it really is in keeping, shall I say, with how the Liberals act when they are in an appointed position or in an elected position, because previous Governor Generals, Liberal appointed, Brian, as you will recall, both Michaëlle Jean and Adrienne Clarkson spent over $9 million and $8 million respectively on travel during their time. But what's the benefit for Canadians is the real question.
I think there's going to be more and more Canadians who will be questioning this office and its function if the people in that office continue to embarrass themselves and embarrass the country. And so, you know, Adrienne Clarkson may not be a fan favorite of many of our readers and viewers, but yeah, I long for the days of Adrienne Clarkson being the Governor General, giving the job some serious consideration, respecting taxpayers comparatively speaking, and, you know, showing incredible support for the troops while we were in Afghanistan, and including going to spend Christmas dinners with them. You know, I have no idea what the connection is between Canadians and the Governor General now. As I say, she's getting into politics. She's speaking out in ways that, you know, as the King's representative in this country, you shouldn't be speaking out in ways the King wouldn't speak on issues of political importance. That's not the job. Learn the job, do the job, respect taxpayers, or maybe taxpayers turn around and say, we don't need this job anymore.
Well, perhaps whoever does become the next Governor General, they might want to consider someone who has a fear of flying. Go to theTorontoSun.com, hit that subscribe button. You're going to find coverage on stories like this and others you will not find anywhere else.